My name is Hazel. Standing here in the company's ethics and compliance department, looking out of the window at the bustling street, I am flooded with memories. It's been a full year and a half since that fateful board presentation, yet it feels like it was just yesterday. I'll never forget the day I changed everything with just 12 seconds. It was a Wednesday morning in September. I was in the large gathering space on the ground floor of the company, filled with 15 senior board members in their expensive suits, department heads from various regions, assistants, and the executive team. The atmosphere was tense, charged with anticipation. Gretchen, our floor manager, was in the front, getting ready to present. She looked so confident, so sure of herself. She had been talking about this annual board presentation for months, boasting about how her monitoring initiative would revolutionize the company. She'd shown us graphs and charts during our lunch breaks, claiming that it would increase productivity and make the entire company more efficient. I was sitting in the back, as an observer. I could barely eat or sleep in the days leading up to this. I knew what I was about to do was risky, but I couldn't stay silent any longer. I had the proof, the evidence of what she had been doing behind our backs. As Gretchen started her presentation, I sat there, my heart pounding in my ears. I could feel the sweat on my palms. I kept thinking about backing out, about leaving and pretending I never saw anything. But then I thought about my colleagues, about Ralph, who had 2 kids and a wife recovering from surgery, and Bea, who worked double shifts just to make ends meet. I thought about the new guy, Terrence, who quit after just 9 days because he felt something was wrong. When Gretchen asked if there were any other questions, I raised my hand. Her face hardened when she saw me. She clearly didn't want to acknowledge me, but the chief executive noticed my hand. "Yes, you have a question?" he asked. I stood up, my legs feeling like jelly. "I have something that shows the real impact of this monitoring system," I said. The room fell silent as everyone turned to look at me. Gretchen's face went pale. I walked towards the front, each step feeling like a struggle. I connected my phone to the projector system, and the large display behind me showed 12 seconds of her laptop activity. There, clear as day, were her login credentials, the timestamp showing she'd been watching the wellness room for 18 minutes, a person in a private medical moment. The room was completely still. The chief executive stood up and asked, "What is this?" Gretchen tried to speak, but no words came out. One of the board members, an older woman named Iris, stood up, furious. "How many of these feeds were positioned in private areas?" she demanded. I told her about the changing area, the wellness room, the small kitchen, and the supply closet. Gretchen tried to claim it was a misunderstanding, but there was no denying the evidence. The chief executive called for legal and security. As I look back, it all started 3 years ago. I'd been working at this customer service job, answering calls from frustrated customers about their broken appliances. The pay was barely enough to cover my rent, but it was a job. My parents were hard-working people. My father was a mechanic, always tinkering with cars in his small garage. He was a man of few words but was extremely honest. My mother was a schoolteacher. She was very warm-hearted and always encouraged me to be true to myself. But when I was 22, my mother fell seriously ill. Her medical bills piled up, and I had to drop out of college to help my father with the family finances. Gretchen, our floor manager, was a different story. She had a way of making you feel small just by standing there. One Tuesday morning in March, she gathered all 12 of us near the water dispenser and announced that starting the next Monday, we would be under strict monitoring. She accused us of wasting 3 hours a day, as if we were thieves stealing from her directly. I looked around at my teammates. We were all just trying to survive. Ralph was struggling to support his family, Bea was worn out from her double shifts, and we all needed this job. With the job market so tough that spring, half the businesses on my street had closed. We had no choice but to accept it. The following Monday, 89 monitoring devices were installed. Gretchen walked around with the technician, saying it was all for productivity metrics. She claimed that successful companies operated this way and that we'd thank her when our numbers improved. The first month with the new monitoring was strange but endurable. We got used to timing our bathroom breaks and stopped chatting between calls. But in the second month, I started noticing Gretchen's behavior changing. She would sit and stare at her laptop for long periods, her expression changing with what she saw. She'd narrow her eyes, lean closer to the screen, and once, I saw her zoom in. One afternoon in May, as I was finishing a call, she walked past my workstation. Her laptop was angled just right for me to catch a glimpse of the screen. It wasn't showing our work areas, it was showing the small changing area at the back. I was in shock. I tried to convince myself that I was wrong, but I couldn't shake the feeling. That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying that image in my head. The next day, I started paying closer attention. I noticed that the placement of the monitoring devices was odd. Some were pointed at private areas like the small kitchen, the wellness room, and the supply closet. I felt sick to my stomach. But I couldn't tell anyone. Gretchen had been with the company for 9 years, and I was just a customer service rep who never finished college. If I accused her without proof, I'd lose my job. So, I started keeping notes at home on my personal device, recording her behavior, the times she seemed most focused, and the directions her laptop was angled. As the months went by, things got worse. June and July were brutal with the heat, and our floor's cooling system barely worked. Ralph's wife had another surgery, Bee's second job cut her hours, and Terrence quit. Most of us felt uncomfortable, but we couldn't put our fingers on what was wrong. By August, I'd been observing for 4 months. I had enough to know that something was seriously wrong, but I needed concrete proof. Then, one Thursday, I got my chance. We were short-staffed, so I was working late. Gretchen left for a meeting on the 3rd floor and forgot to lock her laptop. I knew I had maybe 5 minutes before she came back. My hands were shaking so hard as I walked over to her laptop. The screen showed exactly what I suspected. She'd been watching the wellness room for 18 minutes. I quickly grabbed my phone and started capturing what I needed. Every second felt like an eternity. I was so afraid of getting caught, but I knew this was my only chance. After getting the proof, the next 3 weeks were the hardest of my life. I didn't know what to do with it. Going to human resources seemed pointless, and I wasn't sure what laws she'd broken to go to the authorities. Then came the annual board presentation. After that fateful day in the meeting, everything changed. Gretchen was terminated immediately, and a full investigation was launched. Within 48 hours, all 89 monitoring devices were removed. The company sent out a formal apology, offered counseling services, and revised its monitoring policies across the board. 3 of my colleagues filed lawsuits, which I completely understood. What Gretchen did was a gross violation of our privacy. I chose not to file a lawsuit. I just wanted to move forward and not relive the past for the next 2 years in courtrooms. October brought an unexpected turn. The chief executive called me into his office. He apologized personally for the oversight and told me that Gretchen would face criminal charges. He also offered me the floor manager position, but I declined. After seeing what power could do in the wrong hands, I didn't want that kind of responsibility. Instead, he offered me a position in the ethics and compliance department. I decided to think about it. In December, I finally made my decision and accepted the offer. Starting in January, I had a new desk on the 4th floor and new responsibilities. It's been a long and arduous journey. There were times when I doubted myself, when I was scared and exhausted. But I don't regret a thing. Standing up against Gretchen not only protected my colleagues but also made me a stronger person. I learned that even an ordinary person can make a difference if they have the courage to speak up. And if I had to do it all over again, I would, without hesitation. People still ask me if it was worth it. My answer is always yes. Because staying silent would have meant losing a part of myself that I could never get back. And now, as I continue to work in the ethics and compliance department, I'm determined to make sure that what happened to us never happens to anyone else in this company.